back in 2004, I won the Honda Hornet Super Club Cup. Fast forward 20 years later, I'm on the all-new Honda Hornet launch. If little old me then, drinking myself to smithereens as a landlord back in 2004, you fast forward 20 years later and said, Mr. Fagan, you're going to be on the launch, the press launch of the all-new Honda Hornet, I would have laughed. Life, eh?
When Honda finally unveiled the new CB1000 Hornet, it's safe to say it was met with universal fanfare, and when the Big H announced the price, it broke the internet. However, Honda has hardly reinvented the wheel with the new Hornet, instead taking a reworked 2017 Fireblade engine and housing it in an all-new frame with a sprinkle of rudimentary rider aids. Hang on, there aren't even any wings. The slightly more Gucci SP version gets more power, a quick shifter, an Öhlins TTX shock, and some styler calipers to warrant its additional money over the base model. So, how can a souped up 8-year-old engine and a complete lack of aero be any good in this day and age? I went to the ancient capital of fat English people and mobility scooters to find out.
Well, hola, as they say in Benidorm. Alright mate, yeah, cheers, see you later. Well, this has to be one of the most anticipated bikes in a long time. I put a shout out on Instagram yesterday for questions about the bike. You know, usually we get a good response, but this was almost overwhelming. There was genuine interest and genuine intrigue from all walks of life, not just your usual does it wheelie, does it make girls wet, you know, it was, of course there was that, but for £9,000 you're getting a very decent spec, so rightly people are intrigued. Quite smooth, quick shifter's nice, the box feels very nice. I mean, for an inline four it does sound fruity. It's got this exhaust valve, the difference between the SP, what's going on here then? The SP and the standard bike. I mean look, it's 155 horsepower, it's not going to rip your balls off. So if you're expecting super naked levels of performance, then look elsewhere, but it's half the price of some of its, I want to say rivals. They are rivals essentially, but let's just get it out of the way. This isn't a super naked. If you're looking for an exotic, rip your balls off, 200 horsepower animal with wings and you know, a decent performance, then I say it is decent performance. Look at it. It's quite a small bike. It's very compact. It'd be interesting. Johnny Mack is 6 foot gazillion, so I'll ask him. There's quite a few questions about what's it like for taller riders. I'll ask him. It's very compact. It's quite nosy. I like the fact that it feels like the front wheels in your hands and you can sort of play with it. It's all in the bars. Really direct sort of feedback. I like that. It's sporty without throwing all the wings and kind of, not unnecessary, but maybe superfluous kind of technology into something, making something sporty and super bikey. I mean, as you'd expect from an inline four, there's not a lot at the bottom. It doesn't, you know, it's a sports bike. You know, it's derived from the 2017 Blade, so you know it's always going to be sporty and peak power towards the top, but there's not a lot of sort of brutality at the bottom. It's very smooth, very linear, but it's not as punchy as some might want. I mean, the switchgear won't be to everyone's taste, but it is very simple and effective. I wouldn't say it's intuitive yet. I can't figure out. I like going into these things blind. A lot of these guys on press launches, they want to know what works, what buttons do what, but I like going in blind. It's caught me out a few times in life, purely just to figure out its you know, how easy it is, how intuitive it is. How do you turn TC off? Look, it's making me giggle. So far so good. It does make a lovely sound in the mid-range. You know, inline fours, traditional conventional inline fours, they're not as fashionable as your V4s and even the twins and triples, etc. Just because of the sound, and they're just quite generic, aren't they? But yeah, let's get rid of this bloody aids. You know, it's a bike that fills you full of confidence straight away. There's no nasties. It's very stable, but Usually stability and kind of when everything's in line, it usually means it's boring, but this isn't boring so far. It feels really sure-footed, really planted. But that agility, you know, we haven't really gone for any corners yet, but I can tell you now, it's going to hustle. Like I said, it's got a front, you can really take the piss with this front end. Cool, it's cold out in the sunshine, mind. You cut glass in my nipples. Here we go. Wow, it does feel light, it does feel agile. You can put this thing where you want it. Almost feels like a little sort of 600 in that respect. You know, a lot of big bore super nakeds. Whee! A lot of big bore super nakeds through stuff like this. They're sort of quite heavy, cumbersome. But like this, you can put this thing where you want it. I mean, the brakes are okay. They're quite wooden. That initial part of the lever action is quite wooden. You know, if you put these brakes on, say, a European bike, I think it must be the master cylinder and the lines, because normally when you put these calipers on a European bike with a half decent master cylinder, look, it's £9 grand, they're saving money. That's where it is. Do you know you turn off TC, Saint? How do you do it? You done it? Generally it fuels beautifully. There's no kind of weird bits in the throttle connection is quite nice. It's a very soft application, but now and again when you pick up the throttle around a corner, there's a little bit of it's a bit snatchy, but it's, you know, that's marginal. We're talking marginal bits here. God, it's got a real kind of punch around £6 where that exhaust valve kicks in, and yeah, it's a noticeable kind of hit. It's nice, makes it a bit more exciting, and you get the sound to back it up too. I'm not shocked. I'm nicely surprised by just how capable this bike is. There's bags of talent in there. It feels really nice on the side of the tyre. Doesn't feel awkward. Doesn't feel kind of out of its depth. We're already just scratching the surface here. It's unheard of. £9 grand. A bike under 10 grand of this magnitude, of this spec, because it has got some decent spec, and this capable, is just unheard of. And we're not even a quarter of the way into the ride, but chapeau Honda, this is fucking awesome. The traction control and anti-wheelie and the electronics in general are very agricultural. There's no IMU, no 6-axis IMU. It's always going to be a little bit on the cheap side, a little bit on the budget side. That's the thing that's holding me back at the moment, is the fact that, hang on boys, alright, I can't turn the TC off, which then is linked to the anti-wheelie, and that's my bad because I don't know how to do it. I'm guessing you can't do it on the fly, because why would Honda make a bike capable of doing such devilish behaviour? And its working parameters are super wide. It is a piece of piss to ride. It's so fluid, very smooth, everything's very Mantequilla, and this helps just the everyday sort of drudgery, commuting, etc., through the urban stuff. The throttle's nice. You don't get that snatchy bit until you're riding harder, when you're higher up the rev range and you ask for a bit more throttle. That is when the throttle gets a little bit snatchy. But you know, for this stuff, for commuting, there's lots of questions about commuting which we'll get to later on, but in general, just to answer an FAQ, as an everyday urban commuter, this thing will be very good. That front end is impeccable. Jeez, man. As I said, it feels like you've got the front wheel in your hands. You're just playing with it. You can adjust the line. This thing takes the piss out of bikes, double its price. It's got a lovely bark to it. I'll keep saying it. I mean, look at the exhaust. A lot of people are put off by the exhaust. Some people have been asking about the foot peg position as well, and how that sort of affects the ride. I don't notice it at all. If you ride with your, I'm size 10, if if I ride with my toes right on the edge of the pegs, I can feel the can just on the edge of the heel. But no, it does not intrude at all. You're going to get some marks on there, that's one thing I'll say, on the heel plate. But right, time for a bit of cafe con leche. Where are we? Oh, they got the British flag as well, the Union Jack. That's nice. Makes me feel welcome. We're not all hated by the EU. So much of this bike has been around the price. The hype has been around the price. You know, £9 grand. It's silly. It doesn't make sense. I don't know how a bike in 2024 of this spec and ability could be this cheap. However, there are some obvious signs. One I noticed, the exhaust weld looks very, very cheap. I mean, that's kind of really the sort of main one that I can spot. Other than that, there's no lacquer on the stickers, so they're going to peel off in a hurry, I think. The master cylinder is very budget, and you get a cast piston instead of a forged piston. But other than that, that's about it. I still don't understand. I still can't do the maths. I still can't understand, even with an already proven engine that's been developed and used, how Honda can build this bike for this money. It doesn't make sense. But I don't care. We're having fun. And I'm actually thinking about buying one. I can't remember. Look, let's be realistic, right? I can't afford 25 grand. You know, I've got 2 young lads. We go motocrossing most weekends. That's the nasty habit that we have as a family. So I can't afford that sort of money. This bike will do 99 or 95% of what the other super nakeds can do and super bikes can do, but for a fraction of the price. And I can't remember the last time I jumped on a bike at a launch and went, of course I want the Street Fighters and your Super Dukes, all that sort of stuff. I couldn't afford one, but this is well within reach. And this is half the reason I'm so excited. It's just so accessible. How something this capable and sporty can be this accessible to the masses. It's phenomenal. You know, in previous years, in fact the previous Hornet, it was a good bike, but it was dull, and it was, you know, it was very Honda, dare I say it. But this is spicy, and I can't remember the last time, aside from super bikes, I can't remember the last time Honda made something as spicy as this. Some people go, oh, it's just another inline 4. But it doesn't matter. It's got character. It's got that edge. It's got something about it. It's got that je ne sais quoi. As I said, this engine's got something about it. It's got a intangible injection of bad boy in it. It's, I think because it's still a sort of high revving superbike engine based on a superbike engine, they haven't really massively detuned it. Plus they've given it stupidly short gearing to exaggerate, but it just makes you grin from ear to ear. And I love how linear it is as well. It just sort of starts off slow, builds up, builds up, builds up, and ends in this, whoa, yeah, it ended in a crash then. Hit the old tarmac snake. It's just got everything going for it. It's got the chassis to match the engine. The brakes, like I said, I was being a bit harsh on the brakes earlier, but I'm just using, because the Stylumers I've ridden, the majority of them are on European bikes with sort of braided lines and decent master cylinders. That's, you know, that's what I'm marking it against, and it's just a little bit wooden, a little bit. When we stopped at a coffee stop, one of the Honda technicians came over and he recommended this setting. I didn't realise it had it, but you can change the quick shifter settings up and down, whether it's softer for a sort of slower, softer setting, or a harder, quicker one. And I like it hard and fast. But yeah, the harder and quicker is much better, much sportier. Come on, mate, you've got sliders on. Fucking use them. You got Winona riders on, son. There's not a lot of weight transfer in the front end, which is great. It's a slightly different feel, obviously, with these Showa big piston forks. Some people like it, some people don't, but there's not a lot of weight transfer. So the only thing I would say is we haven't sampled a shitty B road on the fens to sample what the suspension is like yet, but the shock feels very executive. It's quite taut, you can feel it's quite stiff. We haven't ridden the standard bike yet. I'm sure I will at some point today. It definitely feels jacked up, nosy, high in the body. I love getting high in the body. I want to buy one. I keep getting confused with the bloody indicator in the horn. The indicator naturally feels like it should be where the horn is. What a waste of a Saturday. The cockpit's decent. You know, every time you move around, the bars aren't getting affected, leverage isn't getting affected. There's loads of room to move around, even for bigger riders. I was chatting to my mate Johnny Mack, who's 6 foot gazillion. He was saying there's no issues. I'm honestly trying to think of a bike that has a front end like this currently. And I'm going back to sort of previous analog street triples, and it feels like, I don't know if I said it already, but it feels like a 600, not a 1000. I'm trying to think of something wrong with this bike that's not affected by its kind of budget nature. Yes, the brakes are a bit wooden, but that's because of the master cylinder, which is probably off a, you know, a 5, 10, 15-year-old bike. Yes, the traction control is agricultural and there's no AMU, but I don't, yeah, it's not bothering me. I've just turned everything off and ridden without it. If you're confident enough to ride without traction control, this bike is almost faultless. I think putting a 180 tyre on a 1000cc, I mean, it's unheard of, isn't it? Way shitting hell. Like I said, not only is putting a 180 tyre on a 1000cc bike unheard of, it's also a stroke of genius. You know, the willy wavers are going, oh, I want a 200, you know, I want a 200 section, give me more side grip. Yeah, side grip, yeah? But you don't need it. All it's doing is helping the bike turn. Sure, if you're on track and you spent a lot of time on the side of the tyre and you were chasing that time, sure, go for it, mate. I'm sniffing luncheon. I'm sniffing a luncheon somewhere. Yes! Tresbienne. Bar restaurant stop. Well, we stopped. I'll report back later, guys. Cheers. That was indeed a splendid luncheon at the bar restaurant stop. I had the chicken, I had the fresh Stuart Hickin, which was really tasty. Bit pink, but I took the gamble. Say hello, Kate. You're supposed to say hello, Kate. Right, so I figured a super quick way to navigate the no TC. So obviously it resets itself. If you've turned TC off, it resets itself. Even if it's in user mode, you have to go back into user mode and reset it yourself. So it's a quick, ready, go, out, right, down, 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 settings, in, riding mode, across, T for testicle. You know, you can truly test a bike and understand its potential and throttle, gearbox, balance, lots of things by doing a wheelie. Wheelies are seen as nasty, dangerous things. They're not. It's a wonderful addition to this planet, and you know, we should all embrace them more, particularly police. And people often ask me, what's the best way to work off a heavy lunch? And there's one way. That's a wheelie. It's one of those bikes that I wish I could have more time and articulate just how good this thing is. I mean, I've run out of superlatives for it, I really have, but that doesn't do it justice. The fact that I would like to buy this bike should give you some idea of how good it is and how impressed I am. Honda reckon they're going to bring 1,000 of these in the UK. I'm telling you now, they'll be gone. They will be gone. You know, usually when you have a bike like this that's so agile, so flowy, so limitless on the road, of course it's going to have a trade-off. It's not going to have the grip, it's not going to have the, you know, the lap time on a track against the proper super naked. But you know, this is why we're on a road launch, we're not at a track. Could this be the road scalpel of 2025? I'm going to put my money on it. It's only then, you know, I've only seen God a few times under the brakes. Well, just like a little bit more, you know, you get that initial stroke, initial part of the brake, and it gets a little bit wooded and you go, oh God. But for 95% of the riders and for what you're going to do on this bike, you don't want any more. You don't need any more, should I say. And they're spinning up there, nice. It's actually, it spins quite harsh at the top. I mean, obviously, you don't spend all your time bouncing it off the limiter because you're on the road, but it does get an extra kick right at the top. There's no denying this is a 5-blade engine. As smooth and as refined as it is. And it's the little things in life. I mean, I'm being utterly subjective here, but I love the cable clutch. I think there's something so dexterous and manual about a cable clutch. Easy to use. It just for someone who abused the clutch most of their life, growing up racing motocross, a cable clutch just gives you that sense of feel and feedback, and so much attention has been put on making things better, using unnecessary technology. There's nothing wrong with a cable clutch. Chad made a good point actually. He said there's no damper on it, and he's like, well, you know, if you're getting squirrely at a track, and you know, they should put a damper on. It's like, well, if of all the manufacturers, if this bike needed a damper, it would be on there. But it somehow manages to balance this agility and razor edge, razor sharp handling with stability as well. It's can you tell I'm mind blown? You can tell my little mind is blown. I was like 40 degrees of lead angle there, asked for a load of throttle, and it wheelied on the side of the tyre. If I had to give £1 for every wheelie I've done today to charity, I think the CEO of Greenpeace would be a multi-millionaire. Well, we're edging closer to the hotel. We had a full day in the saddle, and can you tell I'm impressed? I mean, I can't remember the last time I came on a bike launch on the road and wanted to ride another day, or wanted to take the bike home or ride the bike home. I mean, just test ride one, whoever you are, man, woman, badger, no matter your ability, whether you're a newcomer. I mean, I'd happily put someone who's new to bikes on one of these. It's friendly. I mean, look, if your wrist gets out of control, if you get a bit of whiskey throttle, sure, it's gonna turn the heat on, but it's so docile when you want it to be. It actually has got bipolar, this Hornet. It's nice and friendly, civil, and yet when you switch the button, it's a devil. In fact, it's not a 10. This bike is not a 10, because I keep having to look down to where I want to indicate left or right. It's not a 10, it's a 9.5. Sort it out, Honda!
Honda haven't made a bike like this in however many years. In fact, they may not have made a bike like this. I can't remember the last time I smiled as much riding a Honda. And you add all the ingredients together, you look at it all, it's all quite simple, it's all quite rudimentary, there's nothing groundbreaking at all. In fact, it's technology that's 10 years old sometimes, and yet it all adds up to this. I want to gather my thoughts. I'm going to have a beer, gather my thoughts, and try and stumble some more. So I've had a few minutes to gather my thoughts, but it's still quite, this bike's really good. And it is, I'm sorry, but regardless of its price, if it was 12 grand, 14 grand, I'd still be just as impressed. For a bike that uses a 2017 engine, yes, I know it's been refined and shorter gearing, etc., with only 155 brake horsepower, you don't need that willy waving 200 horsepower. You don't need that magic number. You do not need it when you ride this bike. I'm just begging you. I want everyone to go out and go to your Honda dealer and ride one. I came here with a very open mind. However, I was still like, well, it's got this, it's got this, it's got this. On paper, the spec is just a bit meh. The execution, the ride is anything but meh. If the KTM 1390 Super Duke R is your gun-wielding drug slinger, and the Ducati Street Fighter V4S is your exuberant playboy, the Honda is like your cool uncle. And that sounds a bit harsh, but it does a bit of dad dancing. It's quite sensible, but actually it likes to party seriously hard too. You have to look elsewhere for its rivals. If you look at things like the MT10, the Street Triple, they're all much more expensive.
The MT-09, even that's more expensive. The Suzuki GSX-S 1000, that's even more expensive. You know, it's a couple of grand more. So you have to look at things like the Z900, and it's not even in the same league. This is another level up. So it's almost in a class of its own, but the best thing I can compare it to is perhaps the S1000R, the single R, and not the M1000R, obviously. But it's kind of, it's in between a super naked and a budget naked. It's in the gooch, the Graham gooch area. But like I said, I want you to go to a Honda dealership, try one, and if I'm wrong, you can have your money back.